Actress Shelley Winter had a fierce, unquenchable thirst for almost everything in life, whether she was diving into juicy roles on the silver screen, following what she humorously referred to as her 8-day ice cream diet, or getting lost in steamy affairs with some of Hollywood's most sought-after leading men. Winter had no trouble satiating her many desires, except for one. Throughout her life's journey, Shelley searched ceaselessly for true love. She finally found what she had searched so hard for on her deathbed at the age of 85 when she married her companion of 20 years, Gerry Deford, in a ceremony officiated by her dear friend and fellow actress Sally Kirkland. Even though Gerry was gay and their relationship was platonic, Shelley regarded him as her one true soulmate. When Sally, an ordained minister in the Church of the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness, married the two of them at the Rehabilitation Center of Beverly Hills, it was an incredibly moving and joyous moment for all parties involved. Shelley wasn't always such a romantic. As a young, budding actress, Shelley had very different priorities than she had later on. She once shared her desires with her former roommate Marilyn Monroe while they were living together in a tiny apartment in Hollywood. Winters and Monroe would write up lists of all the men in show business they wanted to date. The two young starlets reportedly would take turns bringing men home. They had different tastes in men. Marilyn was into all the intellectual types, while Shelley just wanted to date all the Italian heartthrobs. While her film career spanned 70 years, and included celebrated roles in classic films like The Poseidon Adventure, A Patch of Blue, and The Diary of Anne Frank, with the latter two earning her Oscars, Shelley's love life was almost just as prolific. Before she lived with Gerry, Shelley was married 3 separate times, to Mac Mayer, Vittorio Gassman, whom she had a daughter with, and her Hatful of Rain co-star Anthony Franciosa. Besides these unions, Shelley admitted to having hundreds of affairs. In her 2 memoirs, Shelley, also known as Shirley, and Shelley II, The Middle of My Century, the star revealed many details about her countless flings with Hollywood hunks like William Holden, Burt Lancaster, Marlon Brando, Sean Connery, and John Ireland. She described Connery as one of the tallest, most charming and masculine Scotsmen she'd ever met. Sally has since shared that Sean was Shelley's favorite love, and that after her funeral service in 2006, Sean called her up and informed her the feeling was mutual. Sadly, by the time he came to terms with that fact, it was already too late. But it was Gerry who ultimately won Shelley Winter's heart. She loved him dearly because he was invariably honest and loyal to her, and had an uncanny way of making her laugh. Gerry would have done anything for her, and even though their relationship obviously wasn't sexual, he was the love of her life. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like, and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. And stick around to learn all about Shelley Winter's fascinating life story. More details of Shelley's life and career. Born Shirley Shrift in St. Louis, Shelley grew up in Brooklyn with aspirations of becoming a famous actress. She worked at Woolworth grocery store where she successfully organized a strike with her female co-workers. When she first started appearing in films, she wasn't taken all that seriously. That is, until she auditioned to play a dowdy factory worker in A Place in the Sun. She donned an old tattered coat and hat with no makeup and showed up to meet with George Stevens. The director initially didn't even recognize her and cast her without hesitation. Shelley's failed marriages. The first of Shelley's 4 marriages, to a serviceman named Mac Paul Mayer, ended after 6 years when he moved to Chicago. Shelley stayed behind in Hollywood to pursue acting. Throughout her life, she never had very long relationships. Rather, she invested the majority of her energy and focus into her career. She married Vittorio Gassman in 1952. Their relationship was particularly turbulent. On one occasion, when he complained about the way she prepared pasta, she dumped the entire pot of noodles on his head. The duo had one daughter together, Victoria, in 1953, but they parted ways not long after. Tori, as she prefers to be called, grew up to be a doctor, and Shelley never stopped being proud of her. She was an incredibly versatile actress. Shelley continued to sign on to projects that challenged her to embody diverse roles, like the matron who hides a Jewish family in The Diary of Anne Frank, or a sex worker who blinds her daughter in A Patch of Blue. She always found something she appreciated about the characters she played, but she really hated having to play that vile, criminally abusive woman. She displayed the same sort of unrefined, straightforward qualities that she was all too familiar with in her personal life in all her characters. She was incredibly raw and vulnerable and didn't need to be a film star, even though she ended up becoming a massively popular one. And that's what made her a great actor and teacher. Her professional success at times caused the men in her life to become jealous. She once described the evening she brought her first Oscar home when she was married to her 3rd husband, Anthony Franciosa. Apparently, he took one look at it, and just seeing the expression on his face, Shelley knew their marriage was over. Weight gain forced her to switch lanes. Shelley was never one to focus too much on superficial things. She didn't think twice before agreeing to pack on the pounds to play a doomed passenger in 1972's The Poseidon Adventure. But after filming Wrapped, she found she wasn't able to easily slim down again. At first, she laughed it off. She joked she wasn't overweight, she was just, quote, 9 inches too short. But in private, she tried just about everything to lose the weight, including a pretty radical diet where she was medically put to sleep for several days, but nothing seemed to work. Still, she didn't let that slow her down. She was hired no matter what her weight was like. She ended up switching from being a leading lady to doing character roles, and that didn't seem to bother her. Shelley was quite the firecracker. Her outlandish appearances on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson made her even more famous. One evening when she was a guest on the show in 1975, Oliver Reed was spouting off some rather misogynistic views he harbored when Shelley suddenly tossed a drink in his face. She believed strongly in equality and freedom for women of all races, creeds, colors, and nationalities, and counted significant civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy as friends and mentors. She believed that one could not be a decent actress unless they read the newspapers every day and were aware of what was going on in the world. She was socially and politically active throughout her adult life. She was a registered Democrat and attended the 1960 Democratic National Convention. In 1965, she addressed the Selma marchers, albeit briefly, outside Montgomery, Alabama, on the evening before they marched into the state capitol. She was often a defender of the underdog. She believed in liberty and justice for all, even if that meant taking a stand against the status quo. Shelley's later years. She continued acting, portraying Roseanne's outspoken grandmother on the stand-up's hit sitcom. But throughout her career, she was just as fiercely independent and stubborn as her character. But despite being so independent, she loved the company of men and lived with her companion, Gerry Deford, for the last 2 decades of her life. Shelley suffered a heart attack in 2005 and was left bedridden, but she enjoyed watching all of her old movies on TV. She was overjoyed to see her legacy was still relevant right up to the end of her life. On January 14, 2006, at age 85, she died after having a heart attack at the Rehabilitation Center of Beverly Hills. She was interred at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City. Now it's time to hear from you. In the comments section below, let us know what your favorite Shelley Winter's movie was. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.